And now, here is Sam Campbell.
To the northern end of Wisconsin is one of the finest forest and lake areas in the world. Deep in the northeastern part of that forest lies the Nicolet National Forest. And here is the sanctuary of Wigamind, which is my home and workshop. There is never a time that you feel the sacred spirit of the forest more than under the spell of evening, when a full moon sails along at the crest of the pine trees, and it calls the night voices into service. The film we're looking on now is actually a moonlight scene, recorded on the little lake where we make our home. In this forest, hunting and trapping is not permitted, and the animals have become natural. I purposely avoid the term tame because they are not tame. They simply have lost their fear but retained their caution. Come with me now to my little cabin that stands on an island near the center of the lake. We look through the windows and see there a crackling grate fire. Mrs. Campbell and I often sit before this grate fire, and at this moment we're planning our evening. I've often wished I could invite people into our cabin, but of course the room wouldn't permit it. Yet the power of imagination is a wonderful thing. And now pull up your chairs between Ginny and me, and let's recall some memories we've gathered in these forests. There is no other agency in the world that provokes memories better than a crackling grate fire, and we call ours our living memory book. The first memory I want to recall is of a family of raccoons who visit our cabin every night. The hour is 12 o'clock, and there's our family. That is Andrea and her sextuplets. Funny little woolly things they are. And here is the comedian of the group. We call him Archibald. Archibald is one of those little animals who just can't help but be funny. Everything he does is funny. We always know him by the light-colored hair on his breast. He's naturally a blondie. Here's how Archie is funny. For instance, he wants that peanut, and he could reach it all right, only it's funnier not to get it, so he doesn't get it. He's lying flat on his back there, and that's one of the few raccoons I've ever seen do that. We're always testing the little fellows, testing their intelligence and their ability to solve problems. And in this scene, we've hung out strips of bacon on strings. The little fellows are very much excited about this new problem, and not a little bit afraid. Of course, Archie supplies the comedy element. Only Archie would have done that. It really took him quite a while to figure this out. Here Archie's got a hold of the bacon. Even in that, he isn't normal. You'd expect him to get all 4 feet on the ground and tug the way a dog would, but look at the silly position he gets in. And that certainly is the most stubborn pig he ever saw. Sometimes raccoons get to be of enormous size, and here comes one of those big fellows. Looks like a bear cub. While Archie had a hard time to reach that bacon, this fellow does not. Here's a new kind of food to them, a box of raisins. Oh boy, he never tasted anything so good before in his life. Kind of slow work to work with one hand, so he tries two. He kept on at that box of raisins until he had taken every last crumb out of there and eaten it. And then, perhaps with the idea that the box could grow a new crop, he picked up the box itself and carried it back into the brush and hid it from the other raccoons. Now comes a new problem. Peanuts in a milk bottle, and Archibald is terribly upset about this. He recognizes peanuts and he loves them, but what that thing is around him is more than he can say. If a fella could just reach his hand down in there, he might get a hold of something. But you'll notice in all this activity that the raccoons are a little apprehensive of that bottle. They're not sure but what it's alive. Really, it was quite a test for them. They tried everything they could on that bottle. They fought with it. They scratched it. They bit at it. They growled at it. And then every little while would try that system of reaching in again. It chased this fellow right out of the picture. One of the large ones solved the problem. He walked up to it deliberately one evening and chewed the string in two. The bottle's lying on the ground. And now he can reach in there and get the peanuts. And once the problem had been solved, they all seemed to understand the solution. As fast as we tied it up, they'd chew it down. Here was a new family that joined our circuit. That is a mother raccoon who brought 3 youngsters to our menagerie. And Mrs. Campbell is slowly gaining her friendship. Archibald now walks right up to our front door. He became bolder every night. Finally, he walked in that front door, came into the parlor, looked around for a moment, then went out deliberately and brought the whole group in. We had 13 raccoons in our parlor at one time, and the place will never look the same again. Now here's recorded another very interesting and unusual experience. When we returned from a trip, we found our chimney occupied by chimney swifts. Now having chimney swifts in your chimney is just about like having bats in your belfry. At least it will drive you half crazy. They make a terrible noise. The amazing thing, though, is the way they carry on their lives. That nest, you see, is built of twigs that are glued together by a glue they have in their own saliva. And the nest is glued to the wall. When Ginny and I looked at this nest, we were quite disturbed, in a way, because the little fellows were only a few weeks old, several weeks old, in fact, and they'd already outgrown the nest. We were afraid they wouldn't be able to finish their growth at that place. But we soon found there was a definite pattern to their lives. The little one you see there is not the mother bird. That is one of the babies grown to a point of maturity. His wings are fully developed. At the end of each tail feather, there is a sharp needle developed that digs right into the stone. Here's where we commence to understand the plan of their lives. For as soon as those feathers were developed, these fellows left the nest. They still stayed in the chimney, though, selected convenient places where they could cling to the walls, and they stayed there for 3 more weeks. But the nest was never used again. In fact, that is the last picture I could make of that nest. The parent birds fed them a total of 6 weeks in that chimney. Then they departed one night, family and all, and we haven't seen them since. When Mrs. Campbell was sure they were through with that nest, she took it out of the chimney, and we examined it very closely. In this next picture, notice the back of the nest, a dark area. That is made of the saliva of the bird, and that was where it was joined to the wall. Incidentally, in the Orient, there is a bird of similar nature that makes his whole nest out of his saliva using no sticks at all. And when you order bird's nest soup, that's what you get. Looking back at our magic fireplace again, we come to another precious memory. One of the most delightful pets, strange as it sounds, is the porcupine. One of the most devoted. Here is a pair we raised, and we called them Salt and Pepper. For 10 years, these little fellows have been coming back to us every time we're at our home. They never forget us and never lose their friendship for us. We call them the most devoted and interesting of pets, though I should add that they are the homeliest, too. Just look at that mug. And those amber-colored teeth, They're capable of chewing right through oak boards. Here was an odd adventure. That fox thought he was hiding from us behind that tree. And in the next scene, you'll see a baby fox in Jenny's arms. That little fellow just steals your heart away. Examine his expression closely, and you'll understand how he loves that petting. And now comes a series of pictures that Jenny and I count among our most precious possessions. This is a wild mallard duck photographed in a very remote spot. I came upon her one day, discovered her when she was only 20 feet ahead of me on the ground, and I wondered why she didn't fly. Well, there's the reason. This is one of the circumstances that a wildlife photographer is always praying for and he seldom gets. If I had been one day earlier, I couldn't have made that picture because the little fellows were in the shells at that time. If I had come 24 hours later, they would have been gone. So I was there just at the right time. And that old mother is certainly giving us a demonstration of courage. It is a fact, folks, that she believes she's in great danger. And she would love to flee with her youngsters, but they're so young they can't follow her. You see them trying now. Why, that one at the bottom of the nest isn't more than 1 hour old, and he was always so far behind I named him Dopey. Now you notice the blessed old mother came back when they couldn't follow her, and maybe you can understand what happened here. She deliberately placed herself between her babies and the camera. That's as much as to say, shoot me if you want to, but let my kids alone. Notice how her watchful eye watches the camera all the time. And there's Dopey down there. Presently, she tried to take them away again. And surely they're nothing short of heroic in their efforts to follow her. Even Dopey does pretty well this time. But you see, when they can't come, the old mother comes back once more. This time I picked her up and set her to one side because I had discovered an egg here that's just hatching out. In this scene, you're watching a baby mallard duck come out of the shell. We help him to get out, but that was only so we could take the picture faster and let the old mother return to him. He was capable of getting out of that shell himself, and that kicking would have liberated him. It's amazing the way they grow. The moment that egg substance is dry, they're able to swim. If you were to take that little fellow now and set him in the water, he'd swim away. It's true that they can swim before they can walk. Now we want to share one more interesting bird with you. This is a chickadee who has learned to peck on the window pane and attract our attention, so we'll come out and feed him. And folks, I hope I never become so dull and stupid that I cease to thrill from head to foot when I see a little creature like that perched on my hand. It isn't a sentimental experience. It is a scientific experience, for you're getting a correct idea of the natural way for this world to be. And now we leave our world of memories, but we hope to return and show more of these interesting little creatures.